They say the backroads of Idaho hide things no map can show. Truckers talk. We share warnings like secrets. And there's one road we all know to avoid, because the ones who take it don't always make it back. I learned that the hard way. It started like any other long haul. The kind where the road stretches for miles, your mind drifts, and the hum of the tires lulls you into a trance. The load was simple. The route, even simpler. Until I missed a turn. Until I found myself staring at a battered green sign that barely clung to its post, the paint peeling like old skin. The name of the road was unfamiliar, a jumble of letters that felt wrong in my mouth, but my GPS insisted it was a shortcut. Quicker, more efficient. I should have known better. At first, it was just another lonely stretch of road, a little too quiet. A little too dark. My headlights barely cut through the mist that clung to the trees, swallowing the world outside my cab. The deeper I drove, the less familiar things became. The mile markers weren't where they should be. The radio stations flickered in and out, voices warping into something unintelligible. The air felt thick, heavy, wrong. And then I saw it, just beyond the reach of my high beams. Something standing in the road, too tall, too still. And when I blinked, it was closer. I slammed the brakes, my heart hammering against my ribs. The truck groaned to a stop, the trailer swaying behind me. My fingers clenched the wheel, knuckles white, breath coming too fast. The thing, it wasn't a person. It wasn't an animal. It was just there. A shape without details. A silhouette too sharp against the fog. My lights barely touched it, as if the darkness around it swallowed the beams before they could reach. Then, it moved. Not like walking, not like running. It was just suddenly closer, inches from my hood. And in that moment, the radio cut through the silence again, static morphing into something I almost recognized. A voice, twisted, distorted, but speaking words I could almost understand. A whisper, a warning, or a threat. Turn around. I didn't think. I didn't hesitate. I threw the truck into reverse, tires skidding against gravel, and backed up so fast I nearly jackknifed the trailer. The figure never moved, never flinched, but I felt it watching. Felt it waiting. I don't remember turning the truck around. I don't remember finding my way back to the main road. One moment I was fleeing, heart pounding, stomach twisted, and the next I was back on the highway. My GPS showed no record of the detour. My logs had a gap of nearly 40 minutes. And when I glanced in the side mirror, just once, I saw something at the tree line. Something watching. Something waiting. I never took that route again. I never spoke about it to other drivers, not directly. But we all know. We all hear the whispers, the warnings in half-spoken sentences over static-filled radios, and we all know some roads aren't meant to be traveled. Some shortcuts take you places you were never meant to find. And some things, once seen, never really leave you alone. So if you ever find yourself on an unfamiliar back road, if the air feels too heavy, if the silence presses in like a living thing, turn around. Don't wait. Don't look back. Because sometimes the road doesn't let you go so easily, and sometimes it follows you home. I've been driving trucks for a long time. Long enough to know when something isn't right. Long enough to hear the stories that pass between us, whispered at rest stops, shared over coffee in the dead of night. Stories about places that don't exist on any map. About roads that lead to nowhere, or worse. It was years ago, but I still remember every second. I was hauling a standard load through Idaho heading west. It was supposed to be an easy run, clear roads, light traffic, the usual routine. But if you drive long enough, you learn something important. Routine doesn't mean safe. The highway stretched on forever, cutting through miles of untouched wilderness. No streetlights, no houses, just an endless black ribbon of asphalt surrounded by towering trees. My cell signal had been dead for nearly an hour, and the last sign I remembered seeing had been so rusted and worn that I couldn't make out the letters. Then, the road curved, sharper than I expected, and when I straightened out, my GPS screen flickered. Just for a second, and when it came back, the route had changed. A new road, one I didn't remember seeing, cutting straight through the forest. It wasn't on my GPS. No mile markers, no exits, just an endless stretch of road twisting deeper into nothing. The road felt wrong. It wasn't just the silence, or the way my headlights struggled to cut through the dark. It was the trees. They seemed closer than they should have been, like they leaned in when I wasn't looking, their branches stretching just a little too far. My high beams barely touched the road ahead. It was as if the darkness was swallowing the light. The whispers on the radio grew louder, blending with the static. I turned the dial, trying to find a clear station, anything to break the tension. But all I got was the sound of something breathing. Slow, measured, too close. I switched it off. Then I saw it. A gas station. Old, run down, sitting just off the road with a single flickering light above the entrance. It shouldn't have been there. My gut told me to keep driving, but my fuel gauge was lower than I liked, and I needed a second to breathe. I pulled in, the tires crunching over loose gravel. The place looked abandoned, but when I stepped inside, a man stood behind the counter. His skin was pale, almost sickly, his eyes sunken and hollow. He barely looked at me before speaking, his voice flat, lifeless. "You need to turn around," he said. "Don't stop for anyone. If you see lights in the woods, keep driving." My stomach twisted. Something in his voice. It wasn't a warning. It was a fact. I left without a word, my pulse hammering. As I climbed back into my truck, I checked my mirrors. Just a habit. And that's when I saw it. A figure, standing just outside the gas station, watching me. I blinked. The lights of the station flickered, and then darkness. The building was gone. Just an empty lot where it had been seconds before. So, what would you do? Trust the warning, or keep driving? The road stretched on, longer than it should have. My GPS had stopped updating miles ago, stuck on the same number no matter how far I drove. The highway was gone. No turns, no landmarks, just the endless press of darkness, my headlights cutting through fog that never seemed to clear. That's when I saw them. Headlights. In my mirrors. Too bright. Too close. At first, I felt relief. Another vehicle meant I wasn't alone out here. But something was off. The way they moved, or didn't move. No matter how fast I went, they stayed the exact same distance behind me. A perfect match. I pressed the gas. My truck groaned as it gained speed. The headlights did too. A game of cat and mouse, except I wasn't sure who or what was chasing who. I flicked my lights, tapped my brakes. No reaction. I honked, long and loud, a universal trucker signal. Nothing. Then I checked my mirrors again, and the lights were gone. Just like that. I blinked, my breath caught in my throat. Empty road, no sign of dust or taillights, as if they had never been there at all. The radio crackled. The static, ever present since I'd taken this road, shifted, grew, and underneath, something else. Voices. At first, just whispers, a garbled mess. Then, words. Tran ein, kai gay das. My hands tightened on the wheel. Power, help me. A sound like nails dragging across metal shrieked through the speakers. I ripped the dial down, cutting the noise off, but the ringing stayed in my ears. That's when I felt it. The truck was heavier, not just in the way of a full trailer, but wrong. Like something was clinging to the back, pulling me down, dragging me. The cab shuddered as if caught in an invisible current, the engine straining against some unseen force. The temperature plummeted. My breath curled in misty tendrils inside the cab. The heater, running just minutes before, might as well have been dead. My fingers numbed against the wheel. And then, the fuel gauge. It had been nearly full when I left the gas station, if that place had even been real. Now it was dropping, fast, quarter tank, then an eighth, then teetering on empty even though I should have had hours of driving left. I gritted my teeth, my knuckles white. Whatever this was, whatever game this road was playing, I wasn't going to let it win. But deep down, I knew. This wasn't just a road, and I wasn't the only thing driving on it. Something else was here, something that didn't want me to leave. And I was running out of time. The truck sputtered. A violent jerk rattled the entire cab, followed by an eerie silence as the engine died. The dashboard flickered, the lights inside the cab dimming until only the glow of my hazard switch remained. Just me, the dead machine, and an ocean of darkness stretching in all directions. I held my breath, listening. Nothing. No wind, no rustling leaves, no hum of distant wildlife. Just nothing. The kind of stillness that swallows sound whole. Then I heard it. A clicking noise, low, guttural, unnatural, like bones popping in a socket, like something trying to form a word but failing. It came from the trees, and that's when I saw them. Lights, dozens of them, shifting between the branches. But they weren't headlights, they weren't lanterns or flashlights. They moved wrong, too fast, too fluid. I reached for the key, twisted it hard. The truck gave a weak groan, but the engine wouldn't turn over. My pulse pounded in my throat. I tried again. Nothing. The air in the cab thickened, a suffocating weight pressing against my chest. Then, from the darkness, something stepped onto the road. It was tall, wrongly proportioned. Its limbs stretched too long, its movements too smooth, too deliberate. Its face, or the place where a face should have been, was empty, featureless, a void of shifting shadow. I locked the doors. The CB radio crackled to life. Static hissed through the speakers, then a voice, low, distorted, barely above a whisper. It spoke my name. I flinched. My hands trembled as I hit the radio, twisting the knob to silence. But the voice continued, slipping through the gaps, crawling into my ears like something alive. I slammed my fist against the dashboard, my other hand twisting the ignition. Come on! Come on! A scraping sound. Nails, claws, something dragging along the windshield, slow, deliberate. My breath hitched as I forced myself to look up. A shape loomed against the glass, a shadow stretching long and thin, its fingers, or what should have been fingers, tapping. One by one. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. My reflection in the windshield was wrong, distorted. My face didn't belong to me anymore. My eyes... The truck roared to life, the headlights flared, the thing outside the windshield. It smiled. I didn't see teeth, just the suggestion of them, a movement where there should be nothing. Then, I hit the gas. The truck roared to life beneath me, and I slammed my foot on the gas. The tires screeched against the pavement, the engine straining as if it, too, wanted to escape whatever had crawled out of the dark. But the road ahead had changed. My headlights barely cut through the black, but I could see just enough to know something was wrong. The road was still there, still stretching forward, but it wasn't the same. The white lines were faded, curving in ways that didn't make sense. The asphalt was cracked, broken, as if it hadn't been touched in years. And the signs! I passed one on the right, its metal frame rusted and warped. But it wasn't the damage that made my stomach lurch. It was the words, "Welcome to Hollow End." I didn't know that place. I'd never heard of it. Another sign came into view on the left. This one bent at an unnatural angle. Mile 16, last stop for gas. Mile 16? Last stop? That wasn't right. That wasn't anything I recognized. My breath came fast, my knuckles white on the wheel. I kept driving, faster now, the speedometer climbing. I didn't care if I blew a tire. I didn't care if the whole damn rig rattled apart beneath me. I just needed to get off this road. Then, a turn. It hadn't been there before. A sharp curve veering off to the right, like it had been waiting for me to see it. I didn't hesitate. I yanked the wheel, tires screaming as I took the turn, my whole body thrown against the door from the force of it. The moment my front tires crossed onto the new road, everything snapped back, like waking from a nightmare in the middle of freefall. The road was normal, smooth pavement, clear lines, the distant glow of a town on the horizon. The radio crackled, then settled into a familiar song, one I'd heard 1,000 times before. The static was gone. I looked down. My fuel gauge was back to full. The temperature inside the cab had returned to normal. It was as if none of it had ever happened. But I knew better. I drove through the night, putting as much distance as I could between myself and whatever that place had been. I didn't stop. Not until I was somewhere familiar, somewhere I could breathe again. It wasn't until the next morning, parked in a rest stop, that I finally checked the dash cam. The footage was there, clear, crisp, every second of my drive. Until the moment the truck died. Then, nothing. 10 full minutes, gone. The file skipped from the moment I lost power to the moment I took that turn, like those minutes had never existed, like the road itself had erased them. I sat there, staring at the screen, my hands shaking. Then, from the corner of the cab, the CB radio crackled. A burst of static, a whisper, faint but unmistakable. It said my name, and then it laughed. I never took that route again. I don't even let my GPS suggest anything close to it. But sometimes, late at night, when the roads are empty and the world feels hollow, I think about it. And I wonder, was it just me? Or has someone else taken that road since? I've talked to other truckers, shared my story over coffee and roadside diners, over radio chatter in the dead hours of the night. And every now and then, someone looks at me like they've seen it too. They don't say it, but their silence says enough. So, if you're out there, if you ever find yourself on a stretch of road that shouldn't be there, one that twists into places no map can trace, don't stop. Don't turn off your lights. And whatever you do, don't look in the mirrors. You might not like what's looking back. Tell me, have you ever seen a road that wasn't on the map? Let me know in the comments, if you dare. And if you want more stories that will keep you awake at night, subscribe. Just be careful what you listen to after dark.